Welcome to the National Post Politics Bureau. We're here today with Brian Lee Crowley, the Managing Director of the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, and we're talking Trump and tariffs. Brian, I just wanted to ask you, we saw Mark Carney meet Donald Trump last week, and this week we've seen tariffs on China come down from the U.S. and the reciprocal ones China put on the U.S. come down also. Are we starting to get into a new phase, maybe a better phase of this trade war now?
I think so. I think Trump has always had a rather longer view of things than just let's put some tariffs on and see what happens. Yeah. And he's learning as he goes. He's quite right that America has a lot of negotiating power because everybody wants access to the American market. Mm-hmm. And his view is that America has not taken enough advantage of this tremendous draw that America exercises on every economy in the world. Yeah. And so, the tariffs were kind of an opening salvo. Let's signal to everybody that the old assumptions about the trading system are off the table. America's going to strike a tougher deal, and I think he's achieved that. I think he got even the Chinese, who were very standoffish at the beginning, even got the Chinese to the table. Everybody wants to negotiate, and I think the next phase was probably, the beginning of it was probably signaled by the new trade agreement with the UK. Mm-hmm. This is, okay, people have come, they've negotiated, they got something out of it. Yeah. We're not quite sure yet what.
Details to come.
But clearly enough that both sides were happy to admit that they'd reached a deal. Yeah. Which is not where we were just a week or so ago. Yeah. So I think that's where we are now.
Yeah, and Trump actually teased that deal when Mark Carney was there in the meeting with him. So we just came out of an election where the Liberals were the party that said they would be the toughest on Trump. And the Trump factor was, I think, really big in that election, obviously. We saw that meeting, though. I didn't see a lot of toughness on Trump. It was a friendly meeting. Trump was very friendly in a way that we haven't seen either. I'm sure that's probably more of a good sign than a bad sign, but what kind of constrains Carney here? He can't really be tough on Trump the way he was during the campaign, right?
No, I mean, it was always rather fanciful, the idea that any political leader, I'm not picking on Mark Carney, no political leader of Canada has many cards to play in a tough negotiation with the White House. You know, back to the idea that everyone wants access to the American market, and no one needs access to the American market more than Canadians. Yeah. We send about half of everything we produce in the private sector to the United States, mm-hmm. both goods and services. And the result is, one of the greatest trade dependencies in the world. Now, this is the cornerstone of Canada's prosperity. A lot of people say, you must have economic sovereignty. I think that's nonsense. We happen to live next door to the richest, most productive, most innovative economy in the world. For over a century, in fact, closer to 2 centuries, we've been close to the United States, and we have built our economy on the premise of access to the United States. Mm-hmm. So the idea that our Prime Minister can go in and kind of wag his finger in any president's face and say, I'm here to tell you, you have to give us what we want, this is kind of rather amusing, I think, to any serious negotiator on behalf of the United States.
Yeah, where would you like to see it go from here? Do we need to start early negotiations on the USMCA trade deal, or just getting the tariffs off? What do you think happens next?
Well, remembering that Trump sees himself as the great deal maker. Mm-hmm. And I think if we as Canada want to get what we need out of this, we have to give Trump what he needs out of it. What he needs out of it is a big deal that he can say, you know what, we had a terrible relationship with Canada, which I told you all about. I've fixed it. I've negotiated a new deal with Canada. This is exactly what he did before with CUSMA when he got rid of NAFTA. But the difference between the two trade agreements wasn't that great. He wanted the deal, and he wanted to put his stamp on it. Yeah. So I think what we need to do is we need to say, okay, what are all the things that Trump has talked about? He's talked about fentanyl, he's talked about border security, he's talked about national security, he's talked about defense spending, he's talked about trade, he's talked about tariffs, and some other things too. Mm-hmm. My strategy is to say, Mr. President, We're willing to talk about all those things. We need some things out of this negotiation. You need some things out of this negotiation. We think we can both walk away with a deal that'll make both parties happy. And I think he'd be there for that. In fact, I think that's what he's looking for. Yeah. So there are people who say, oh no, you mustn't connect defense and national security and trade and so on. I think that's completely been overtaken by events. I think we need to have the trade-offs that we can make with Trump that allow a big deal that he will enthusiastically embrace and that gets us what we need.
Okay, well, we know the news won't stop on this, so thank you, Brian. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. And thank you for watching. We'll see you again.